I started this challenge with high hopes of filming a couple videos a week, but that just didn't happen. I realized pretty quickly that I just wanted to sew and learn without explaining the twists and turns going on in my head. And also, I'd get so wrapped up in what I was doing that I would completely forget to make sure that I was doing it on camera. So basically, I'd be cutting and messing with fabric off to the side and not get any usable footage. But that doesn't mean I didn't finish the challenge. I worked block by block, week by week, and I ended up with a lot of good practice and a very incohesive set of blocks. I sort of think of them as my baby step blocks. There's nothing too complicated about them. They're just sort of a first step in the improv process. I'm happy with them despite their lack of perfection and their inability to work together. This was an opportunity to explore and have fun, and in that case, I was definitely successful. I had a lot of fun, and I learned some things about myself. I love negative space. Quarter circles are fun, and the smaller the better. I absolutely cannot figure out half circles. They are a real pain. I didn't get them right even once. And I like a more simplified color palette. I eventually stopped using that green altogether. I like black and white and another color, and that's good enough for me. I am going to attempt to make a quilt top out of these blocks despite the fact that they are very incohesive. I'm gonna take out a couple of the blocks that I just can't stand and work from there. I do have a future mini quilt project in mind that should help me put what I've learned into practice in a more pleasing way, but for now, I just want to finish this project while I still have some momentum going. Otherwise, it's just going to become a permanent UFO. I've been arranging and rearranging and taking things down and trimming them and then arranging them again, and this is what I think I've settled on so far. I'm going to assemble it in columns, and then I think I might need to add some inserts on the top or bottom to make sure that everything ends up being the right length. But then I'll just assemble it like a regular quilt top. I also want to point out that I seam ripped a block so that I could use it as sort of a little insert here and over there on the other side so that the columns would come out sort of similar lengths. I've pieced my quilt top, I've trimmed it, it's sort of almost squarish, and now I'm ready to start quilting. For this quilt top, I want to use a new marking technique that I haven't used before, and when I do that, I like to use a little bit of scrap fabric, some scrap batting, just things that I don't mind if I ruin, and I also like to use this opportunity to get the tension right on my machine. So this technique is the Hera marking technique, except of course I don't have a Hera marker because I didn't want to buy one if I didn't know if I was going to use it or not. So instead, I'm using a butter knife. And it works really well. So save yourself some money and dig out a butter knife. I'm going to be marking with the rounded smooth end and not the serrated end. So this is a waist block. It's the half circle block that I couldn't get to work, and now it is being put to another useful purpose. So with the Hera method, you use a ruler or you can go freehand, and then you are going to score a marking line, a sewing line, into your block or quilt or whatever you're sewing on. But the trick is, it doesn't really work. There's a little bit of a line, but it doesn't really work if you don't have any batting behind it. So there's the faintest line. I'm not even sure if the camera can pick it up. But if I do it on some of this waist batting, line up my line, and then do the same thing, I tend to go back and forth. I'm not an expert, of course. This is my first time. Go like that, remove the ruler, and then boom. Much better, crisper line. Although you can't see it on camera, how frustrating. Maybe this fabric is too dark. Let me get something lighter. Okay, let's try this. Mark, 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 mark. There, now you can see it. So you need that batting, that cushion, to make the mark more visible. So I'm going to go ahead and apply this technique to my quilt top, probably ½ inch away. I see a lot of straight line quilting with modern improv quilts, so that's what I want to do. So I've probably marked about a dozen lines now with this butter knife, and I've got to say, I'm willing to bet that the Hera marker is probably a little bit more ergonomic, more comfortable to use than this knife. It's working, but I'm feeling a little strain in my fingers and a little bit in my wrist. And if you have seen some of my previous videos from this year, I did injure it a little bit earlier, and I'm a little worried about re-injuring it. So I'm going to go a few more lines, and then I'm going to take a break and pick up after a nice rest and maybe a hot compress. I did finish marking and quilting my quilt last night, but eventually using that butter knife ended up making one of my fingers go numb, which was weird. But it worked well. It's a good method if you are made of sterner stuff than I am, I think. If your wrist or hands don't get easily fatigued, I say try it out. Maybe not a butter knife, although it does work. I think there is definitely a benefit in buying the Hera marker if you're interested in this technique, because it does look like it is more ergonomic, more comfortable in your hand. So keep that in mind. I'll leave a link for one in the description in case you're interested, in case you have no idea what I'm talking about. I did have one problem though. My stitch length kept changing as I sewed, and that is usually one of 4 problems. It's either 1, I'm changing my speed too quickly, so I'm going slow and then I go really, really, really fast all of a sudden. But in this case, I was going slow and steady the whole time. I didn't speed up and slow down a bunch. Number 2 is the weight of the quilt is holding my quilt down and it's making it hard to get fed through the machine. That wouldn't be the problem here because it's a mini quilt. There was basically no weight to worry about. The third reason could be that the machine was going over a bulky seam, but in this case it kept happening in the areas where there were no seams at all, so that's not it. And that leaves the 4th reason, and this is the reason I think it kept happening. I need to clean my machine. Over time, my machine gathers the fuzz and lint and dust and stuff inside, so I periodically clean it out. I try to do it on a schedule, but I end up just doing it whenever I notice a problem. So I'll have to get to that pretty soon. And maybe I'll make a video about that if you're interested. But don't go away. I need your opinion. How should I finish this quilt? I have a few different ideas, but I just can't decide. So either I finish it like a normal rectangle, just like this, just square it up a bit. Or I was thinking maybe I could do a circular shape, either a wonky freehand circle, or I could print off a circle template and cut it like that. And then the last option I was considering was rounding the corners. And I could do that freehand or with some sort of stencil as well. So what do you think? Rectangle, circle, or rounded corners? Let me know in the comments section, and I'll see you again real soon. Bye!